Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 349 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week, my man?
I'm doing well, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. We're going to dive straight into the review part of the show. We're going to start here at the Echo Arena in Liverpool, Merseyside, United Kingdom. It happened last Friday, June 17th, live on Channel 5 terrestrial TV. Let's talk about the undercard briefly. Friend of the show, Josh Kelly, back with a bang. A TKO win in round 4 against Peter Kramer, who was cut. Kelly was cut actually on his left eye in round 2. But yeah, Josh Kelly now 11-1 with a draw. Successful comeback there after losing last time out. I believe it was to David Evanesian. And the top of the bill, Nathan Gorman, 19-1. A TKO in the first round against Thomas Salek. The writing was on the wall, I should say, pretty much straight away. Salek now 17-4. We knew what was going to happen there. It was always going to be an early knockout. Great to see Nathan Gorman look good like that. While Tyson Fury was sat ringside, a good friend of Gorman's. I'm not sure if they're related. I wouldn't be surprised. It was for the vacant IBF International Heavyweight title. Salek down twice prior to the stoppage. Very nice and easy there for Gorman. Moving out now to the Bayou Event Center in Houston, Texas, USA. Over here, friend of the show, Melissa Odessa Parker, now 6-0. A successful defense there for her. It was a defense of her IBO World Female Bantamweight title. She was able to beat the previously undefeated 5-0, now 5-1 McKenna Tansley. So a unanimous decision there over 10 2-minute rounds. 8-2 on one card, 6-4 on another, and I can't remember the other card. It was kind of cool though because we had two female judges, if I'm not mistaken, just one male, and the referee I believe was a male as well. But kind of cool to see two female judges there in a decent level female fight between two undefeated females that were both 5-0. Moving out now to the Leeds United FC Centenary Pavilion in Leeds, Yorkshire, United Kingdom. It wasn't televised, unfortunately, but let's go over the card. Friend of the show, O'Hara Davies, now 24-2. He was able to beat Abdesamad Nekchad. Never heard of this guy. It was a late addition to the card. He is now 13-3 with a draw, but O'Hara Davies 24-2, a TKO in round 8 there, and his opponent was down in the 7th round and again in the 8th prior to that stoppage there. Also on the card, friend of the show, Archie Sharp, with a points win over 10 rounds against Alex Rat, who's now 14-5 with 2 draws. Archie Sharp now 22-0. He won very wide on the cards in the end, I think 8-2 and 9-1 pretty much. So yeah, he's sitting comfortably in that number 1 spot in the WBO Super Featherweight World Rankings. He's going to soon be mandatory for Shakur Stevenson. So yeah, he's sitting there quite comfortably. And Jack Bateson top the bill. He's now 17-0, a unanimous decision there over 10 rounds against Diego Ruiz, who's now 23-5 with a draw. It was for the vacant WBA Intercontinental Super-Bantamweight title. Good win there for Jack Bateson. Moving out now to the Madison Square Garden Theatre in New York, USA. This one over here, let's just briefly touch on the undercard. It's the final card to mention, so we're flying through this review bit. Wendy Toussaint on the undercard with a win. He's now 14-1, a unanimous decision over 8 rounds against the UK's Asinia Byfield, who's now 15-5 with a draw. Little bit of a road warrior now. Seems like he always ends up in the away corner, and he's been racking up losses recently, which is a shame because I think he was a talented fighter at one stage. And Abraham Nova now 21-1. He lost his he was KO'd in round 5 against Robisi Ramirez, who's now 10-1, and is quickly becoming probably the most exciting Cuban fighter at the moment. I know there's going to be some people that might argue. I think there's a couple guys coming through, but right now he seems to be the guy. He's been impressing every time. Like I say, a KO in round 5 for the vacant USBA featherweight title and the vacant WBO global featherweight title. But all eyes now to the main event. Artur Beterbiev, now 18-0, still has that 100% knockout percentage intact. Another knockout, this time in round 2 against Joe Smith Jr., who's now 28-4. Friend of the show, Joe Smith, very devastated for him, to be honest with you. It was for the WBC, IBF and WBO light heavyweight world titles, I should say. Yeah, sad to see Joe Smith lose. He's a very, very nice guy. We all really like Joe Smith. First round, I felt, was a really explosive start from both guys. I think Joe Smith wanted to make a dent early, and both guys were throwing big shots. Nothing necessarily landed big, but big shots were thrown. And then, of course, the last shot of the round, down goes Smith. He wasn't badly hurt, I didn't think. There wasn't too much in the shot, but he lost the round 10-8, so it was a bit of a nightmare start. And then, of course, that forced Smith to have to really bring the heat in round 2, which kind of worked against him, I guess. He was down 3 times in the round. Beterbiev was throwing every punch in the book. He was landing horrific uppercuts. It was starting to get very dangerous, and the referee, for me, did the right thing because he stopped the fight while Joe was still on his feet and had just taken a right uppercut followed by a left uppercut, which you can imagine that combination landing boom, boom. That's not a pretty sight for the man on the receiving end. So Beterbiev, in the end, I guess, went through Smith like, as we would say, a hot knife through butter. He destroyed him. But I think credit to Joe Smith for having a go and gambling and going out on his shield. And what a way to lose in some respect, I guess. I hope he's in good spirits. But yeah, he certainly came to have a go. I don't think he fancied maybe being outboxed and gradually beaten down. I think he just thought, no, I'm going to fight fire with fire. I believe in my power in both hands, and let's just go for it. And you know, I put some money on this fight to not go the distance. For me, that was like printing money. And yeah, that of course happened. I just didn't expect it this early, because for Beterbiev now, I think that is the earliest knockout he's recorded in quite some time. I mean, as I touched on last week, his 3 prior fights to this were knockouts in round 9, 10 and 10. And the last time he was able to secure a knockout as early as the second round was when he scored a first round knockout. And that was just over 5.5 years ago. Eddie, you took yourself off mute.
Yeah. I was just saying, I watched it too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. He's, I'm, when you're watching the build up and you're thinking about the fight, I even told my wife, I was like, man, you might want to watch this fight. And she's not the biggest boxing fan in the world, you know what I mean? But I'm figuring that you might want to actually see this, because this has like fight of the year type thing written all over it. Especially when I found out that Joe Smith has never been down. I didn't even know that. So I'm thinking that possibly he may have the chin enough to make this an interesting fight, at least for a while. And I think Joe Smith had the right idea in what he was planning, and I, going to try to be aggressive, try to get him going backwards, try to get him in an uncomfortable situation where he's a big power puncher himself. So I figure you'll get him on a back foot, maybe be able to take some of the steam out of him, maybe put him in a position where, he sees the wall caving in on him. But I think he underestimated his boxing ability and his background, his amateur background, just complete understanding of what to do in range and how to box in general and how to land clean shots when guys are, putting themselves out there a little bit too much. And, as you said, Joe, I think the plan backfired on him pretty heavy. And it was just because I think, Joe Smith was, being a little extra aggressive. He would miss shots, but miss shots long. You understand what I'm saying? And Beterbiev was just okay. I'll let that left jab or long left hand or even a short or even a long left hook come out and just counter you over the top. And that was what a lot of the time happened to him. And it's just kind of unfortunate because he got caught with good, clean shots. It wasn't so much like he was just getting battered around the ring. He was getting caught clean with sharp shots right after a shot he threw. You understand? So he most likely didn't see him. And then you already know Beterbiev is a hell of a puncher. So it was just like you said, a nightmare start early in the first round, getting caught with that shot. But on top of that, just getting caught clean too many times from very dangerous punches, probably the biggest punches in boxing. It's unfortunate for Joe Smith. He's a good fighter. Blue collar guy that everybody can get behind and really like. It's really unfortunate to see it happen to him. But Beterbiev is just a better guy, a better fighter. Most people knew he was a better fighter, but he proved it by a lot in this one. And, you think about Bivol and how great Bivol did with Canelo. Hard to imagine you ever stand up under what Beterbiev is going to bring. It'll be an interesting fight to see, but Beterbiev's tough, man.
Yeah, I understand what you said there, Eddie. There's a few little connection issues, but I think myself and the listeners got what you were saying. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are kind of basing, and I don't want to go in this area, but a lot of people are basing this win over Joe Smith as some kind of, I guess, crowning of being the best light heavy in the world. And I think for me, it's a toss-up, of course, between Beterbiev and Bivol, but I don't think this win over Joe Smith makes him, he's undoubtedly, better than Bivol. And, you touched on it just briefly there. Of course, it's the fight that we do all want to see at some point between the two Russians, that dominate at light heavy. But yeah, I just can't wait to see that fight. And I saw people getting really ahead of themselves, saying things like, he would have obliterated Canelo. I don't think, again, we can watch that fight on the weekend and know that for sure. And also people are saying that Beterbiev would have beaten Andre Ward. People are going a little bit crazy with all of that. Oh, Eddie, you're jumping back in. You can say something. I just hope the connection's not too bad. Go on.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. But you know what it is, man? It's just like, so, obviously I watched it and listened to what you were saying about how, guys want to jump in and, he did this, he did that with Joe Smith. Now we got to remember Joe Smith, though he's a really good fighter, he's not really, I'm not going to say he's not in the same class. He's just a different kind of fighter. So we're talking about styles now. You know what I mean? So when you're just going to say that, Beterbiev will jump in and he'll smash Canelo, he'll beat Andre Ward, he would do this to this guy, he would kill this guy. And it's like, well, you can't say that because the styles matchups are different. Their chins may be slightly different. Their abilities, their talents, their strengths, all of it, they're different. So he has to approach the fight different. Would you say, or would you think in this situation that Marcus Brown is a better fighter than Joe Smith? I mean, maybe he is. Skill-wise, probably. But was he as tough? I think we would say no, right? Joe Smith has never been down until this fight in his career. But because of the kind of fighter Marcus Brown is, he was able to survive a lot longer than Joe Smith and the game plan he had. So there's so many factors that are involved in boxing, more so than just, he's a better fighter or he's like this guy and he'll beat this. It's more than that. There's so many different factors. So you can't just say just because he beat Joe Smith the way he did that he would do the same to everyone else, because it's obviously not been that way.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's obviously true. And like I say, I pretty much said that. I said that, just because he beat Joe Smith in that manner doesn't really mean too much. I mean, we saw, this is a repeating thing that's gone on for years and years in boxing. Just like when Michael Bent knocked out Tommy Morrison for the heavyweight world title, it didn't necessarily mean that Michael Bent was this unbelievable fighter or he was the best in the division at all. So I know, we're both on the same page with that. I just hope some people calm themselves down and realise that this win does not mean that he would beat Andre Ward. This win does not mean that he would walk through Canelo. And this win does not mean that he is clearly head and shoulders above Bivol. Styles make fights and freak things happen. Like I say, it had been over 5.5 years since he last got a knockout this early. But anyways, that is the end of the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up part one, the final thing for me to do is to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBA and WBC Super-Bantamweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Brandon Figueroa. Brandon, welcome back on the show, my man.
Thank you for having me once again.
Hey, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, man. So, Brandon, we last spoke back in August of last year. It was just before the Stephen Fulton fight. Let's discuss that fight briefly. You threw over 1,000 punches on your own, but you didn't get the decision. How do you feel now? It's been some time, of course, since the fight.
Yeah, that fight, I went out there with everything. It didn't come out as planned. But I felt like it was just something out of my power. I did everything I could to make sure that I came out with a victory. But it's boxing. You win some, you lose some. And, I'm just happy to be able to fight again and do what I love. And, the bounce back game, as they said. And I'm just so excited for July 9th here in San Antonio, Alamodome. And it's definitely going to be a great fight for me to show that, I'm ready. I'm ready after this fight. I'm ready for a tighter shot at 126.
Yeah, and I want to get to that in just a moment. I wanted to ask Brandon if you'd had any time to watch that Fulton fight back. I mean, sometimes it's good after a few weeks when the emotions have calmed down a bit to go back and maybe score the fight round by round and be harsh on yourself and score close rounds to Fulton in an attempt to try and understand how the judges came up with those scorecards. Have you done that or not?
Yeah. I watched the fight. I seen the fight. And yeah, it was a really close fight. I'm not gonna lie, it was a really close fight. I saw it based on, the boxing of it, the ability of boxing, and I saw it, the way of putting pressure and so I saw it both ways. I saw it was a close fight. I saw where he landed some clean shots, where I landed, I put the pressure. I hurt him 4 or 5 times. He didn't hurt me not once. He didn't back me up maybe at least once or twice the whole fight. But even then, I mean, I learned a lot from that fight. I learned a lot and I grew a lot, and I'm working towards bettering myself every time in the gym.
My last question on that, because it is in the past now, it's last year, of course. Do you think that at 122, Stephen Fulton's the best fighter in the world?
I mean, who knows? He still needs to fight the other unified champion, and once he does that, once he wins, then I would say, yeah, he will be the best 122-pounder.
And obviously, it looks like we won't get the rematch with you and Fulton, certainly not anytime soon. Obviously, you made this decision to move up in weight to featherweight. You touched on it, 126. I spoke to your brother Omar on last week's show. He tells me that the best is yet to come from you. He really believes that. Is that true?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I was, squeezing myself a lot, and to make 122, I'm 5'9". I'm 25 years old now. Back then it was so easy to make 122 as my body, hadn't grown into the man muscle that I have now. So yeah, it was getting more and more difficult to make 122 as time passed. I'm getting older, I'm getting bigger, and I definitely felt the natural. I was just getting naturally big, and that's something that me and my team looked at, and I was starting to, I've been making 122 ever since I was like 18, 17 years old. So I've been sticking to that weight class for almost 7 years. So yeah, it's time for me to move up a weight class and let my body, just grow into its natural, weight. And I feel like 126, I'm gonna be even better, stronger, faster, more explosive. and definitely more relaxed because I don't have to kill my body to make 122.
Yeah, and it's almost impossible to imagine you being more explosive and more, stronger and like, wow. I mean, you at 122, I mean, you were so exciting, of course, and the pressure, non-stop pressure, all the punches, and, obviously you were massive for the weight, and I think you're probably going to be massive for 126 as well, so it's exciting. You touched on it, July 9th, San Antonio Alamo Dome against Carlos Castro. I guess you're both coming off sole career defeats, but it's a tough comeback fight for both of you, really. Are you expecting this to be a tough fight, Brandon?
Yeah, I know he's no pushover despite his loss or whatever. I know he's going to come at 126 ready as I am, and, we both have a lot to prove. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's going to be a great fight. Maybe it might even be fight of the night. I mean, who knows? It just depends on how well he comes prepared, because I'm coming at 110%, and I'm coming to make a statement and show everyone that that I belong in this world-class level and that I deserve a title shot at 126.
And his only loss came on a split decision last time out to Luis Nery, a man you know very well. I remember you beating the bleep out of Luis Nery, but styles make fights, of course. I'm looking forward to this one. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be a little bit more technical. Use my boxing ability a little bit more. Mix in a little bit of getting on the inside, working on the inside, which I do so well. But definitely more so being a little bit more technical. That's something that we've been working on in the gym. A little bit more defense, trying to be a little bit more slick, and be more patient, be more technical.
Yeah, no, I look forward to that. And as I said, we had Omar on the podcast last week. He has a big fight himself, July 23rd against Adrien Broner. He seems to me, Brandon, that he's in a really good place. I mean, I was speaking to him. He sounded like a completely different person to the person I've spoken to in probably the last 2 or 3 years. How is he doing from your perspective?
Yeah, my brother struggles a lot with mental issues, and just him coming back and putting himself in the sport once again and dedicating himself to it, it's amazing. That's what boxing is all about. You get knocked down, but you got to get back up 2 times. That's to say, because a lot of people don't think being mentally healthy is important when it's the most important. In fact, you can go in the best shape ever physically, but if you're mentally not right, then all that goes out the window. You got to be 100% mentally before you're 100% physically, and that's something that a lot of boxers don't pay attention. They think, I've been training hard for 2 weeks, but they're going through a lot of issues. They're going through a lot of stuff. It does play a big, it does take a toll and play a big part in not being 100%, and that's what a lot of people are realizing nowadays, is that mental issue is really important, especially in boxers, because boxers, they go through a lot. They put their body through a lot, their mind through stress, and, having to cut weight, having to have everything ready before the fight. And that's what I feel like a lot of people don't understand. They think that we're just machines, that we're just train and fight, and think we have no humanity in us. But I feel like boxing is one of the hardest sports, especially nowadays, that there's a lot of issues going around the world, and having to deal with everything outside of boxing, and then having to deal with everything inside of boxing, and having to, I guess, make sense of everything, and have control over everything, and then go to the gym and do what you got to do and kill your body, come out of there real exhausted, and having to deal with other stuff. It does take a toll on you.
What an incredibly powerful answer to my question. You're absolutely right. And this is why I feel like boxers in particular should be respected hugely by fans of the sport. Even if they're not particularly fans of that boxer, I feel like every boxer should be respected. That's why I don't like to disrespect any fighters at any level. Getting back onto your brother's fight, of course, there's a lot on the line for both guys. The loser is probably done, certainly at that level. I said to Omar as well that I think Adrien Broner is probably the perfect name to help motivate him for this big comeback. Would you agree with that, Brandon?
Yes, of course. I feel like this is a great fight for both of them, especially my brother. You know, their careers haven't been that great recently due to, you know, I'm pretty sure, like I said, mental issues. They both have been gone through a lot. And, yeah, like you said, you got to respect every boxer regardless if they're barely starting their pro debut or they have 100 fights to their belt. It's all about having the guts to go through a training camp and the guts to get inside the ring. That's the real, you know, thing, you know, to do as a boxer. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a great fight for both of them. Great comeback fight for both of them, and I feel like it's, you know, both of them are going to try to make a statement. Both of them are going to try to, you know, really leave their mark on this fight, because I feel like it's really important for both of them.
It absolutely is. And just finally, Brandon, before we wrap it up, if you've got any closing message, particularly to your UK supporters, I know that a lot of guys stay up late every time you fight to watch the fight live. What's your closing message before we wrap it up, my man?
Oh, man, it's just amazing, the immense support from the UK fans, from fans all over the world. Is just amazing. You know, I'm just a small-town kid, and, you know, coming from basically fighting in local shows to fighting in the MGM and televised fights, you know, it's just amazing that a lot of people get to see my talent, get to see my fights, and they love the way I fight. They love the fact that I come to fight, and that's what I'm all about. You know, I train my ass off, and I make sure that I go 110% to give you guys, the fans, the supporters, the people that love boxing, that love fighting, to give you guys a great show and entertain you guys and show you guys that, you know, with hard work, I mean, you can reach anything. You know, like I said, I'm just a small town kid, and I've proven a lot of people wrong. And, you know, that's what it's all about. You know, if I get to inspire kids all over the world, that's my goal. That's my goal is to make sure that every kid is disciplined, consistent, and work hard for what they want. And if they really love what they do, it doesn't have to be boxing, but in general, if they love to draw, if they love to you know, whatever the case is, if they do it at 100% with love and passion and discipline and consistency, then they can reach anything.
There we go. Full of positive vibes as always. The Heartbreaker is back, ladies and gentlemen. Brandon, it's always an honor speaking with you. Thank you for your time. Best of luck July 9th, and we'll catch up sometime after, I'm sure.
Thank you, Joey, so much. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Quite a lot to go over here. It's finally been announced. Usyk Joshua, the rematch, is going to be taking place in Saudi Arabia. The date for that, of course, is August 20th. I think a lot of people pretty much knew that. Anyway, it's going down in Jeddah. So, yeah, that one, it's good to finally see it penciled in officially. Also, Mark Magsayo, the WBC Featherweight World Champion, the guy that just dethroned Gary Russell Jr., he will be having his first defense when he gets in there with Mexican former World Champion Ray Vargas. That one goes down Saturday, July 9th at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. We just spoke to Brandon Figueroa. He's on that undercard. In other news, we will see a fight between former unified heavyweight world champion Andy Ruiz Jr. and top contender, the Cuban Luis Ortiz. That one will be going down on pay-per-view, by the way. Can you believe it? On Fox Sports pay-per-view, September 4th, during Labor Day weekend. That's going to be at the Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles. On the undercard as well, we're going to see Isaac Cruz getting in there with Eduardo Ramirez. We're also going to see Miguel Flores getting in with Abner Mares, Miguel Flores, friend of the show. Shout out to him. And a few other little fights there. And in other news, I think it's finally been announced the arena for Canelo Triple G. That trilogy will be at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Another piece of news that a lot of people pretty much knew. That's going to be September 17th. It's unbelievable how quick this year is going by. That's it though for the news. We're going to move now to the preview part of the show, and we're going to start here with a card that takes place later today at the Montreal Casino in Quebec, Canada. Over here, good fighter Yves Ulysse Jr., 20-2 in an 8-rounder against Requien Connor Facundo Arce, who is 14-6 with 2 draws. We're also going to see... the main event is pretty much the one that interests me the most. The undefeated 27-0 Eric Bazinian. It's a 10-round fight, and I haven't actually heard of this guy up until I've seen his name here. So I was kind of doing a little bit of homework on the guy. It hasn't really boxed anyone of note just yet, but I am intrigued with this fight because I really like the matchup. I think it's quite interesting. He gets in with Marcelo Esteban Caceres. That's the guy who's 30-3 with a draw. In his last fight, he was able to lose on points but actually drop Edgar Berlanga, which I'm sure we will all remember quite vividly. And he also got stopped in round 11 against Billy Joe Saunders in a fight. He was really pushing Billy Joe, and even on one card was actually leading in that 11th round, which is crazy. He was going on to possibly beat Billy Joe Saunders and take his own before Canelo eventually did. So yeah, that's quite a stiff test, I guess, there for this undefeated 27-0 Eric Bazinian, who's got 21 KOs as well, from Armenia but based and living now in Canada. And Caceres, like I say, tough guy, tough Argentinian, should provide a tough test there. We're going to find something out for sure. Moving out now to the Sky Dome in Coventry. It says that this fight card is on Sky. I'm very surprised if that's the case, actually. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. On the undercard, we've got one half of the Irish duo, Aaron McKenna, 14-0, no opponent just yet for him. Casey Benjamin, 15-1 with a draw, no opponent yet for him. Karis Artingstall, who is a Olympian from 2020. She makes her pro debut. She's the girlfriend and partner of Lauren Price, who debuted, I think, not last weekend, I think it was the weekend before that. So yeah, she has her pro debut, and I believe she's getting in with a female called Veda Masio-Kate, who's only been stopped, I think, once in 15 or 16 losses, and it was to Chantel Cameron. So man, if I see good odds there for Karis Artingstall to win on points, I'm going to be all over that one. Elsewhere on the card, we have prospect Adam Azim, 4-0 in an 8-rounder, no opponent just yet. And also we're going to see River Wilson Bent, 12-0 with a draw in a 10-rounder against Tyler Denny, who's 13-2 with 3 draws for the vacant English middleweight title. I think both guys are not really punchers. I think that's got distance written all over it there. River Wilson Bent, obviously the undefeated guy, but I think a lot of people are actually riding with Tyler Denny, and I think he's the slight underdog as well. And the main event, friend of the show, Sam Eggington, 31-7 in a 12-rounder against Prism Slaw. I'm not even sure how I'd pronounce his surname. I'm going to say Zisk, who's actually 18-0. The problem is, no one really knows how good this guy is. He's a little bit of an unknown quantity, to be totally honest. As I say, undefeated, 18-0. It's over 12 rounds. The guy's got 6 KOs, so not a big puncher. 30 years of age, from Poland, 6 foot tall. You look down the resume, not many names that stand out. I think we'd probably have to side with Eggington to win the fight, but with the bookies, it's quite close. He's not a massive favourite. It's there for the vacant IBO World Super Welterweight title. And now the final card to mention, it takes place at the Techport Arena in San Antonio, Texas. It's on Saturday night live on DAZN. It's a really good card. We've got Nikita Ababe, White Chocolate, 11-0 in an 8-rounder against Noe Larios Jr., who's 14-1. We've got a guy that some people say is the best prospect in world boxing, Raymond Ford, 11-0 with a draw, fighting for the WBA Continental Americas and IBF North American featherweight titles against the fellow undefeated Richard Medina, who's 13-0. That's over 10 there. Friend of the show, Jessica McCaskill, 11-2 in a 10-2-minute round contest, defending her undisputed welterweight titles, the WBC, WBA, IBF, WBO and IBO, against Alma Ibarra, who's 10-1. All the best there to Jessica McCaskill. Murodjon Akhmadaliev, the guy that holds 2 of the Super-Bantamweight world titles, the other 2 that Stephen Fulton doesn't have. This guy has these 2, the WBA and IBF world Super-Bantamweight titles. He gets in with Ronnie Rios as well, who 33-3 these days from California, but I think it's probably a step too far at this point. His 3 losses, came to Ray Vargas, Azat Hovhannissian and Robinson Castellanos. He's got a few wins, decent-ish wins in between. Of course, I guess his claim to fame in recent times was taking the O away from Diego De La Hoya when he stopped him in round 6. Since then, he's backed up another couple of wins, including one against Oscar Negrete, so I guess that's quite a good one because he beat him in very clear fashion. So it should be quite a decent test for Akhmadaliev, but Akhmadaliev is extremely good, so I'm expecting him to come through it probably on points, to be honest. I think, I don't know, maybe he might even stop him late, we'll see. And another fantastic fight on this card, Jesse Bam Rodriguez. I think he's going by Jesse Rodriguez Franco these days. The young little phenom. I think he's, the youngest world champion, I believe, in boxing. Obviously, last time out became world champion, beating Carlos Cuadras unanimously over 12. He gets in, and I think he moved up in weight as well for that fight, if I'm not mistaken. He gets in with Wisaksel Wangek, also known as Sirisaket Saw Rungvisai, the man that was able to knock out Chocolatito Gonzalez back in 2017 now, when they had the 2 back-to-back fights, when the first one was really close and then he rematched him, knocked him out. Since then, he's put together some good wins. He lost, obviously, to Estrada in a really, really close fight. So yeah, and he beat him as well since knocking out Chocolatito. They had 2 fights since then. They're very, very closely matched. So yeah, he's 50-5 with a draw, 43 KOs, and he gets in with Jesse Bam Rodriguez, like I say, 15-0, 10 KOs. It's going to be a really, really, really good fight. I'm quite surprised to see Franco this big of a favourite. Obviously, it's not his suited weight class just yet, and obviously Wangek has got so much experience and he's such a big puncher. The only thing is, he's been out the ring for 15 months, and we know that in that time that Jesse Bam Rodriguez has been very active, and he's been impressing every time, especially last time against Cuadras. Like I say, moved up in weight, short notice. He looked unbelievable. He had Cuadras down, which a lot of people don't manage to do. And I thought he might at one point get the stoppage, but obviously it didn't come. So, it's a great fight. I can see Jesse Bam Rodriguez winning on points. I can see him maybe even stopping Wangek, but at the same time I can certainly see Wangek stopping him. So I just really admire the bravery of Franco, who or Rodriguez, whatever we're going to call him, to go into this fight here, because I don't think he really needed it. It's for the WBC Super Flyweight World title, which he holds that title. So he's given a real tough defense here against Wangek, and it wasn't really in the plans. I think he moved up in weight initially just to have that one fight against Cuadras, because Cuadras had lost his opponent, and the plan was to move back down. But because he won a world title and felt really good at the weight, he's decided to stay there, and he gets in with arguably, one of certainly top 2 or 3 in the world at that weight. So I applaud him. It's a massive risk. There's a lot on the line for him, and that's why a lot of people are really loving what he's doing at the minute. He's bringing a lot of excitement to those lower divisions, so I'm a big fan of his, and I wish him all the best. But that wraps up part 2. In part 1, we did the review part. We welcomed our special guest, Brandon Figueroa. In part 2, I have just run through the news as quick as I could have done, and I've gone through the preview part of the show. So there's good fights on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, so make sure you tune in for as much as you can. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a couple seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 349 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge thank you to this week's special guest, the former WBA and WBC Super-Bantamweight World Champion, Mr. Brandon Figueroa. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in week after week. But that's about everything from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.